What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the TB Toycast YouTube channel, and today we are unboxing from the AEW Jazwares line. It is the one and only Colten Gunn. Of course, Austin Gunn, if you are keeping track at home, was unboxed just last week. Try to do tag team partners within a week of each other, because I think sometimes it can be a little bit too long, but I also want to have separate videos to kind of give them their own unique, they need their own video to thrive, so that's kind of my thought here. But again, that may change as time does go on. Of course, Colten Gunn, one half of the Guns or the Gun Club. I know they're also been a part of the Bang Bang Gang, the Bullet Club. I don't know. It's all convoluted over there. And I'll be honest, I don't follow AEW super closely, so I can't even really say. But like I've said before, I like that AEW is around. I like that any company can get a toy line because a lot of these guys may have not had jobs if not for companies like AEW or TNA or New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it's good for the industry. But of course, Colten Gunn in his green attire matching the Austin Gunn figure. He's got the AEW tag title, a couple extra hands. Not a bad looking figure. I feel like he definitely resembles his dad, Billy Gunn, quite a bit more than Austin does. So you can definitely see that in the face scan there. Nice picture of Colten Gunn. Of course, Colten Gunn on the side there. The AEW packaging, of course, very similar to the Jack's Classic Superstars packaging from back in the day. And, of course, Series 16 includes Julia Hart, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, Orange Cassidy, Takeshita, and, of course, Austin and Colten Gunn. Some cool soft goods would have been fun with this. Of course, Austin and Colten Gunn, I've always thought their gear was very reminiscent of Shawn Michaels. They must have been a huge HBK fan when they were younger, which has probably had to make their dad, Billy Gunn, a little upset. Of course, Billy Gunn, not doing too bad, still around in 2025. Who would have thought that? Over 60 years old and still going, looks better than ever. And in fact has made wrestling figure history. A lot of people don't talk about this, but the only guy to simultaneously have AEW and WWE figures. That has never been done before, and I don't think it'll ever be done again. And it's kind of crazy, and it's one of those things like you think, okay, they'll stop doing Billy Gunn figures now. Then another one gets announced, and another one comes out. It's crazy to me that that's still happening, and he's got AEW figures still coming out. So it's definitely crazy, but good on him. Make that money, you get that Legends deal, make it happen. So very, very cool. But like I said, I think it's cool that AEW gives a spotlight to certain guys like this. To guys like Takeshita that was on the back of the package. A guy like Orange Cassidy that probably would never gotten an opportunity with WWE back in the day. But they're getting an opportunity with AEW, and they're on television. They're getting action figures. They've been in video games. I think it's great, and I think it's good for the industry, and I think that's the most important thing here. But the Colten Gunn figure definitely looks cool. Like I said, I love the gear. It looks like they nailed the tattoos. We'll do a closer look once we get it unboxed. And coming with a title belt is always cool. Like I said, soft goods would have been fun, but we don't see that a ton with the AEW figures. But, you can't win them all. I do know sometimes Jazwares does better on their second try. I've kind of always been like, get the first figure of each guy. But they recently put out Living Legend set or whatever you want to call it, of FTR that was only available on, Jazwares Vault, I think is their website. And I thought that set looked great. I didn't pick it up because I already had FTR. And I'm more of a one, each character. That's all I need. I don't need multiples of every character, so I try not to do that too much unless the look has changed, but that version definitely looked better for FTR, so I think sometimes, it's one of those things where they do better the second time around. Kind of like the show step by step, as it were. Of course, you got these rubber bands here to kind of hold that title in place, which is I'm okay with. Makes it look better in the packaging, so good on them for that. Rubber bands out of here, of course. Let's take a look at this title belt. Oh, but first of all, let's look at Colten Gunn. I feel like the head sculpt's pretty good. He definitely has that 93 Billy Gunn look to him. Of course, Jazwares figures, as we've always seen. Interesting tattoo work here, but it looks similar because it looks like that's what Colten Gunn tattoos kind of look like there. Very cool. He's got the arm sleeve on. Very cool. Like I said, I think they did a really good job on the gear deco here. Torso discoloration, though. And it's not really discoloration. They're just different colors. Now, if you've never messed with one of these, this right here is kind of more the hard plastic, and the torso right down here is almost more of a, I don't want to say rubber, but it's a softer plastic. And I feel like that's always kind of been the thing, is they're different materials, so I don't think the color's ever going to be perfect. So I try not to be too picky on that, but, it does look a little bit off to me. The title belt definitely looks cool. Really cool material. They did exactly like Mattel style. I miss the days when you could just kind of zip them up and fit it to the guy's waist. These I've never liked as good. The belts themselves look phenomenal, but I hate how they fasten like that. Never been a fan of that there. But overall, Colten Gunn looks pretty cool. Cool addition. He's got the gun hand. I think I'm definitely going to keep that. We do got a couple extra hands here. I don't talk about that too often because I don't feel like these are super necessary. We got a fist hand, and we got kind of a C-grip open hand. So nothing too special. But I feel like you need a little bit of a hand like this just to kind of give him something. It would have been interesting to get two gun hands, but we didn't get that here. But again, it is what it is. Like I said, I don't. Oh, this also says gun on the boots there. That's very nice. Very, very cool. Again, these are nice looking. I don't think Jazwares does a bad job. I don't think every figure they've had has been a home run by any stretch. But I don't think they're horrible either. So again, I think it looks good, and I think getting a Colten Gunn figure is pretty fun. So what do you guys think? Sound off in the comments down below if you are a AEW or Jazwares fan. Maybe you were, but you kind of fell off. I know a lot of people did. Again, this is Wave 16 of Unrivaled. We've also got Unmatched. We got a lot of interesting characters there. In fact, just the other day I was at Walmart. I wasn't even really thinking AEW, but I found the new Ric Flair. I think from the latest Unmatched wave, and I picked it up. I was like, well, I'm going to buy this, It's what I think Juice Robinson's in that way too. I'd like to pick that one up as well, but it's just one of those things like, hey, Ric Flair, and it's kind of catches you off guard because you don't see AEW too often, which I think that's why a lot of people assume they're going away, which I don't think that's the case. I think they will stick around, and it'll be interesting to see what happens because I think I go back to DC Comics. DC was with Mattel for many years. And all of a sudden, they lost the license and were picked up by McFarlane Toys. And everyone's like, you got to be kidding me. McFarlane's got DC? This is going to be horrible. And McFarlane changed the game. And I don't think anyone can argue that. I know a lot of people who weren't even into DC figures were all about the McFarlane figures. I heard it from several people who thought those figures were phenomenal. And, McFarlane kind of changed the game. Now we know, I believe in 2027, maybe late 2026, Mattel's taking the license back from McFarlane. So after a good, 5-6 years, something like that, he's losing the license. But now I think Mattel has to really step up to the plate here because they really have to do a good job because I think everyone has, come to expect, what McFarlane's brought to the table. And, Mattel, they can't halfway do it. They know they have to bring their A game. I think they need to go to that Masterverse scale. I think that would be perfect. I think getting Batman and Skeletor and all those characters in the same scale would be a home run. And I think there's no reason why they shouldn't do that. But we'll see what happens, of course. But again, it's one of those things like it stinks that McFarlane's lost the license, but it's also like, man, it's kind of exciting to think, I wonder what Mattel's going to do with it. I wonder what they're going to bring to the table. Is it going to be just as many figures? Are they going to be a little bit different? What are they going to do with it? And, we'll just kind of have to wait and see, and I think that's what's fun. So I don't want Jazwares to lose the AEW license, really, because I feel like they've done a good job with it. But if they did, it would be interesting to see what happens. So, but that's what makes the toy world interesting. That's why we can have YouTube channels. That's why we can have podcasts like the TB Toycast. Go subscribe now on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Because that's what we're talking about. That's what we're always thinking about. Like, what's it going to be like if this happens, if that happens? It's always a lot of fun. But overall, I like the Colten Gunn figure. I think it's a really fun one. It's a welcome addition to my collection. I got a few more AEW figures to unbox, but quite frankly, not that many. So I'm hoping Jazwares pumps a few more out. I know they showed off a bunch at SDCC. I would love to get that Outrunners 2-pack. I would love to get the Matt Cardona, who just showed up in WWE. So that's an interesting thing. Colt Cabana, Christopher Daniels, a lot of guys that should have had figures a long time ago and they're just now getting figures. It'll definitely be interesting to say the least, but overall I think it's fun. And like I said, would we have ever gotten a Colten Gunn without AEW? It's possible, but it's hard to say. And, again, I think a lot of these guys, like, Penta recently shows up in WWE. Ricky Saint, who was formerly Ricky Starks, was a big part of early AEW. They are now in WWE. I think he's the NXT champion, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of very talented individuals. Ethan Page is another one who's left AEW and are now in the WWE. In fact, Ricky Starks, a.k.a. Ricky Saints, Ethan Page, and Penta all have Jazwares figures. And I know now they all have Mattel figures coming out. In fact, I have the Ethan Page Mattel figure. I just haven't unboxed it yet. That's what makes it fun, and I think it'll be cool to see more of that in the future. But like I said, let me know in the comments down below what you think. If you're picking this up, passing, whatever your thoughts are, and maybe you're not into wrestling figures. If not into wrestling figures, this may not be the video for you. I guess we shall see as time goes on. Of course, check out the other videos on my channel here this week. We unboxed on Monday a really fun one from Marvel Legends. It was the Spirit Spider. What a great figure that was. It was cool to dive into some Marvel Legends again, and I haven't unboxed one. I did Dracula a while back, but before that it had been a minute, so it was cool to dive into that. Of course, last week was a really fun week. On Monday, I already talked about it, but I dove into Colten Gunn from Jazwares, the other half of the Gun Club. That was a lot of fun. On Wednesday, I went to the World of Springfield again, not literally, not the Playmates line. It was the Jax line. It was the Millhouse figure from the new Jakks Pacific Simpsons line. That line's becoming more and more fun each and every week. I absolutely love it. And then, of course, on Friday, the darker side of Eternia, as it were, I went back to the Masterverse line with the new Eternia Skeletor. And man, what a cool figure that was. I love the Masterverse figures. I have a pile of those over here I need to unbox. But I try to keep the channel fresh. I try to give you guys different stuff every day, so it's not the same old thing. Because trust me, there's some stuff here I'm like, oh, I'm really wanting to unbox this, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. But hopefully you guys enjoy all those. Check those videos out and check out What's on the Pegs every Saturday. It's my version of a toy hunt. Check that out. I drop new episodes of that every Saturday, kind of showcasing what I'm finding out there when I hit the different stores. And then also check out the TB Toycast podcast. I've already talked about it, but I can mention it again. It's my show, right? So check out the TB Toycast podcast. We drop a new episode every Thursday with me and Travis. We have a different main event covering a classic toy line, as well as all the news and happenings in the toy world that particular week. Always a lot of fun. We've over 200 episodes now. We've been really cranking out some episodes on that, so check that out wherever you get your podcasts. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you all very much for checking out the TB Toycast YouTube channel. That is Nope, it's not Colten Gunn. That is Colten Gunn from the Gun Club, from AEW Jazwares. And we will see you in the toy aisle.
Yeah. One more time. It ain't over till I say it's over. So lock the cage up, cause this is a takeover. The wait's over. If this the final time we meet, then you'll be on your back on my feet. Then I'll tip the cage over as a hangover. I'm super fly so I can splash off the top. And I can shut down the shot.